Good evening, and thank you for tuning into the Lene Show. Today's episode will be discussing therapy and why I am so pro therapy and why I also think it's important for people to go and acknowledge that they need to go. If you follow my podcast or if you follow my webpage, you know that I am a survivor of domestic violence. You will also know that I had not I don't want to say a rough childhood, but I had a few things that happened to me as a child that definitely impacted the person that I became and why therapy is so important. I want to start off by saying that I was raised by my grandmother. She got custody of me and my brother due to my mom struggling with drugs. My mom ends up going into rehab and recovering and definitely having a fulfilling life, which is obviously the good part. But there were some bad parts where my grandmother ended up having to raise us. So I actually started therapy as a young child just because social services thought that it's important for kids who are, taken from their mother and moved into a different home to make sure they have an outlet to talk to. Also, I just want to say I do not have any memory of this because I was like 2 years old, but I also had expressed at 2 that my brother's father had been touching me. I don't know the elaborate details. I just know that was something I expressed at a young age, and also part of the reason why they initially put me in therapy. I did therapy for about 2 or 3 years. I remember it very little. I remember going and being in a room with little toys and playing and someone kind of talking to me, but I definitely don't remember the sessions or any of that stuff. So I just want to say I did do therapy as a kid, and I understand why that was something that they thought was important, because as an adult and as a mom, I do think that I'm sure that helped me at that age and maybe helped me understand things. After that, I guess when they thought that I didn't have to do it anymore, or I just stopped going. I ended up moving back in with my mom once she got her life together, and she did. I mean, she had a job, she had a home, and after that, she took very good care of my brother. I went to good schools. My home life was good. I had food, I had clothes. There was nothing going on at home that made my childhood hard. The only thing for me that maybe, I don't know, put me on the path that I went is that both my mother and my grandmother were very strict people. My mom was always, and this could have been because of what I had said as when I was younger, of course, but my mom was always fearful of me staying over at someone else's house or someone else having to watch us, just not the worst case scenario, which is obviously someone possibly touching your child, but also not feeding me, not treating me nicely, maybe being mean to me. She was very fearful of that stuff. And so was my grandmother. So everything we did together as a family. It was her, my grandmother, and my brother. The 4 of us, we would go on vacations together. We go to theme parks together. We did road trips together. We did birthdays together. Everything was just the 4 of us. We rarely did things with other people or family. We did it with family. Like we went to cousins' birthdays, or, we could spend a week in the summer with an aunt, that kind of thing. So she kept it family. But as far as friends went, my mom was very like, oh, you don't need friends. You have family. I'm your friend, kind of thing. That's kind of how my mom was. So, of course, I feel like any normal child who doesn't have the freedom to explore or get to know themselves or know what they like or don't like, we do things. I snuck out. I snuck and got a job. I snuck with a boy that I liked or a girl that I liked, whatever. I think that that's kind of a typical behavior of a child that you are trying to keep in a bubble, and you don't want them to get hurt. You don't want me to get any dirt. You don't want me to get scraped on. And I think think that that's normal, but still home life was good. So that was the worst case scenario, my mom being strict. But like I said, there was nothing else going on. I end up meeting a boy. We like each other, whatever. I get pregnant. Senior year, I graduate from high school, and I have my daughter that year that I graduated. And of course, it completely changed my life. I went from this young girl who was interested in joining the military. I had a plan. And actually, on my website, I have a blog, and the blog is called Awakened. And it's kind of almost like what I'm talking about now, but I also wanted to talk about it for people who, sometimes people don't want to read it, and it's a little long. I was able to go into more detail on my blog than I am on my podcast, because, I want to keep it short. But if you are interested, the blog on my webpage, Lene.nyc, it has the title is called Awakened, and it talks about this. It talks about me realizing how important therapy. Oh, and then also studying Buddhism, because that's what I do. That is what I do now. This is what I've been doing for maybe 5 years now. I've been studying Buddhism, and I decided to switch over and become a Buddhist and learn about it and practice it and meditate and all that good stuff. Between studying Buddhism and going to therapy, that is what saved my life. So that's what I talk about on the blog, about how, I went from this girl, and I knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. I wanted to join the Air Force. I wanted to fly planes, and I wanted to be something with law, whether I'd be a lawyer myself, whether I'd be a paralegal. I knew that I wanted to that was my passion, law and the Air Force. So anyway, obviously I do not join the Air Force because I become pregnant my senior year. I have my daughter, and I decide that, okay, I may not be able to join the military, because in order to join the military, when you have children, you have to be married. And I was not married, nor was I willing at the time, which is a regret that I have, to get married just to join. But, things happen for a reason. So I just say to myself, okay, college is what I will do. I can still do something with law. So I told myself that I would get my degree in criminal justice, and I would take some college classes. I didn't start taking the college classes until after my daughter was 1. So for the first year of her life, it was just me and her. It was me, her, and my mom was there, but my mom worked. I did not have a job. Because I had a newborn baby. All my friends, they went off and did their thing. They went to college. They joined the military. They, maybe moved somewhere, whatever. They did what young people do when you graduate high school. You know what I'm saying? You go and you explore. What's life about? I was the only person in my grade, that graduated, one that became pregnant senior year. If anyone else did, they didn't keep their babies. So I was the only one who got pregnant my senior year. And also, and that was even out of my friends and people in my class. So everyone literally went and did their own thing. So here I am, a single mother with a baby, and I'm home all day. I take her to the park. I kind of go outside. Well, initially I couldn't, because my daughter is actually born on the first day of winter. So, there was no going outside. There wasn't anything. So really for a long time, I was stuck in the house with her, and it was just me and her, and the only good thing I can say is that she was smart as heck, because I taught that girl pretty much everything. There was nothing else I could do but teach her, because I was bored. And I was so excited when I was able to start classes, because then I could see, I could go outside. I could speak to other people my age, and so she would go to, I went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. That's the college that I went to. Well, that's the college that I went to after I had her. I did take college classes while I was pregnant with her. I just want to say that. I did go to college while I was pregnant with her, so I can get the ball rolling and have at least some college credits. But after I had her, I did not go to school and I did not work. I just stayed home with her for the first year, and I want to say a little over a year, because her birthday's in December. So for a little over a year, it was just me and her. But then as soon as I was able to take some classes, I want to say John Jay College is a great college for moms, because they have a little daycare where, I could breastfeed her. And then while I was in class, they'd watch her. And then while you have your little break, I'm breastfeeding her, and I'm also looking over my notes and studying. It's not the best scenario, and it definitely took a lot of strength for me. And any single mother and teen mom, we all know the struggle of taking care of our babies and going to school, and some of them even having jobs. I can luckily say that I did not have to work, that, I was able to live at home with my grandmother and just go to school, and I did have food stamps. So that helped me as far as having food on the table. And then I didn't have to pay any rent or anything because I lived with my grandmother. And I breastfed. I breastfed heaven for my daughter for the first 3 years, because I was like, I need to save every penny I get. So anyway, that is what I did. And it was really exciting when I was able to go to school and, get an hour, even if it was just taking a lecture. I was able to get an hour to myself and feel free, and also feel like an adult and feel like I was a part of something. Maybe by the time my daughter is now 2, I meet a gentleman who, on my way to school, we end up meeting and we kind of hit it off. And he's completely not the type of guy that I was normally into, but it was just something about him. I want to say nowadays it's kind of called swag. I don't remember swag being a word when I was when I was 20 years old, but I want to say he just had a swag about him that was different, but his appearance wise was not the normal guy that I kind of was interested in. But it was something about the charisma that he had that drew me in, and we started dating. And I talk about that relationship also on my webpage, because that relationship ended up turning into domestic violence. It turned into domestic violence for 5 years. It was physical and emotional, and it was the worst 5 years of my life, unfortunately, but it happened. I did have a child with him. So now, mind you, I have 2 children, and I'm trying to take classes, which eventually stopped because of the violence and the bruising and me not wanting to go outside and not wanting people to know and all of that good stuff. And, like I said, 5 years. So within that 5 years, it was just nothing but torture. It was fear, it was anger, it was embarrassment, it was a lot of things, because once again, this is not how I pictured my life. I didn't picture my life being a teen mom, let alone being a mom by 22 with 2 children, and also now being someone who gets physically and emotionally and verbally abused on an everyday basis. This is not what I thought my life was going to be. And I would say I was going to leave. My friends would tell me to leave. I lost friends because of that. Family members who stopped talking to me because they just didn't want to see that anymore. They just didn't want to be a part of this. And I was pushing them away and telling everybody to mind their business, and they don't know what they're talking about. And, but I kept saying, somehow I'm going to get out of this. Somehow I'm going to get out of this. And I just didn't get out. I would say it. I'd go to bed after a beating and say, Lord, this is it. This is the last day, and tomorrow it is, and I'm putting him out, and it just didn't happen. And then what I thought, of course, getting abused would be the worst thing. My kids are witness to this, mainly just my older daughter, because she's 3 years older than her sister. So, my youngest one doesn't have too much memory of that. Well, I don't think she has any memory of that because she was so little. And then by the time we break up, she still doesn't really, she knows now that she's older, but she doesn't really have a memory. But my oldest definitely knows and was there and saw me physically getting hit. And I remember her crying, and, it's hard for me to even discuss. So of course I thought that was the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And then the worst thing that could ever happen does happen. My entire immediate bloodline, which is my grandmother, my mother, my brother, and both of my kids, were in a very bad car accident. I mean bad. Flipped over a embankment, flipping whatever, and my brother and my oldest are thrown from the vehicle. They go through the windshield of the car and they are hurt. They are so hurt that they are taken to the hospital via helicopter to have emergency surgery. Now, I don't know, other than a parent losing a child, I don't know if there's anybody who understands the moments where your child could possibly lose their life, because my daughter lived. So I don't know what it feels like to lose a child, but I do know what it feels like for that to be the possibility, where you're in that moment and you get a call from a doctor and mind you, so I'm not in the car. I know nothing about this. At this point, I'm working. I'm trying to leave this relationship. I'm thinking about leaving this relationship. I'm contemplating it because now I have a full-time job and my job sees sees me coming in with bruises, and I'm going through motions. What am I going to do? I'm thinking about my next steps, but nothing is set in stone, okay? And so I get off of work this day, and this day is not like any other day. The day started bad. There were signs that this day was not going to be a good day.